organisms which have these moral intuitions that obviously match what you'd expect from a social species, right? We think that raping babies is wrong, super, super antisocial. We think that murder is wrong, it's antisocial, right? Like, it derives from empathy, a trait that we know has obviously developed for evolutionary reasons. So I'm trying to be convinced here that because of collective consensus on something that you'd evolutionarily expect us to have a relative consensus on, that actually we've been granted a magical faculty. And I'm supposed to believe that, despite the fact that none of the reasoning that we actually do is severely contrary to that. Like, the only type of reasoning that we ever do that is super duper moral realist is religious moral reasoning, and those religions are false, so that's fine as well. I yield the rest of my time.
Great. So we're gonna have oh my god, I literally forgot my own format. Cross-examination. I literally don't remember how long it was supposed to be. I'm blanking right now. Someone remind me.
It's usually 4 minutes.
Was it 5 minutes each?
No, it's usually 4 minutes of cross each.
Wait, what?
Openings are 5, cross is 4.
Right.
That's what it
Let
was
me check
before,
my.
unless I'm
Let me check my
missing
doc
something.
because I know that'll be accurate. Hold on. I got no sleep last night. Okay, each person gets 5 minutes. That's what it was.
It's 5 minutes of cross? Okay, sure.
Yeah. So we'll start with 5 minutes of cross for Detroyer to ask Reg questions, and then after that will be 5 minutes for Reg to ask Detroyer questions. And then it'll be rebuttals and such. So, yeah, I'll start the time on your first word.
Okay, so there's a bunch of things I want to cover here. First, you said that, I guess your view is that people are expressing their moral preference when they express moral statements. However, people very frequently agree that something is moral, but that it's not their preference. So what do you think is going on there? Are they just confused?
Could you give me an example of this? I don't understand the question.
Oh, like someone will say that, I don't know, like giving to some charity is good, or, or doing this or that is bad, but it's not but they have preferences which don't align with that. That's a very common occurrence.
Yeah, moral preferences and what they want to do are not the same thing, right?
What are their moral preferences then? What does that
Just
even
the
mean?
way they like desire society to be, or like the world that they desire, the actions they desire people to do, even that when they don't benefit them or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, so you're saying that? Okay. So then people are expressing what, the values that they would want people to have, or something like that.
Yeah, I want burger. I shouldn't have burger. Right? That's coherent if you under like a morally anti-realist review. I don't know why I'm stuck
On the
there.
view that you're expressing, that people are just saying that, well, they would prefer that people don't have that attitude or something like that. That people don't generally
They're
have burgers
prescribing
or
it.
whatever.
They're saying that this is the state of affairs they'd want to have, right? In the absence of their own benefits.
Yeah. Why do you think this is an accurate portrayal of the moral semantics? Because this seems like really alien to me. I could never imagine that this is what people are saying.
Maps onto a bunch of ways. People use language. I want this, but I shouldn't. There's a most obvious case.
No, I'm asking why I think this view of the general moral semantics is correct. That when people say something is good, they're saying something about how they would prefer people to act, or something like that.
Well, yeah, they have a preference. It's a state of affairs that they prefer. Why this matches the language, and your account doesn't. So.
Well, I'll go to how my account does match the language, but I'm asking how your account does match the language. Why? What's the motivation for this view of the semantics?
Yeah, like I don't understand. I don't. This is a bizarre question. I've already told you. There's an event. I believe this is what they're expressing, and it matches what. There's no situation.
You're saying you believe this is what they're expressing. I'm asking why I think that's the case, because as far as I can tell, that's like so far removed from what's actually going on that it's like ridiculous that you'd bring it up. That's why I'm asking why you would think that.
Why? Because it. I keep telling you. I don't understand it. You're going to need to rephrase the question in some new way.
Look, you're claiming that when people say things like people should do this, or this is good, or this is bad, they're expressing something roughly like I prefer that people do this, or I prefer that people not do this, or something else like that. I'm asking why I think that's the case, because that seems like insane to me.
Why? Well, I'm not asking you questions. When I say moral preferences, I believe that people have an intuition about certain behaviors that they like, despite even if when they wouldn't benefit them, that they would choose to be the case rather than other behaviors that they think that there is they're given some reason to act in this way, and that people have reasons to act in this way.
Yeah, it's not really answering my question. I mean, okay, I'll move on to the follow up. How do you think this accounts? You said this appears to account for agreement and disagreement, I think, but how? Right? Because if people are actually just saying something about their own preferences, there's not actual real moral disagreement. People are just expressing different preferences. So
they're doing the kind of when someone says abortion is murder, right? They're trying to convince you that this thing that they expect you to believe is wrong, to have the preference against, is met by abortion, right? And so and then they have the dispute whether abortion is murder, knowing that if the person agrees that abortion is murder, they will be moved to think that it is wrong. This is the kind of moral disagreements that people engage with.
So that sort of dialogue can happen sometimes, but what the phenomena that I'm appealing to is the fact that people actually disagree about the moral status of certain actions.
Right. When somebody,
and how does that?
When two people disagree about the moral status of murder, right? Let's say it's an abortion is murder dispute, and one person goes, abortion is murder, and the other person says, yeah, it is, but murder's not wrong. All of a sudden, you realize it just becomes a screaming match because they don't have anything to refer to other than their intuitions and preferences.
So you're saying they're not actually disagreeing? I'm trying to understand, because what I'm pointing out is the fact that
once it gets down to the primitive, there's no cause for further disagreement. But those disagreements don't exist in language, so that's fine. That's exactly what you'd expect.
Of course, there's disagreement about basic moral.
Show me an example. Show me a way that could happen.
People disagree about whether abortion is right or wrong.
Okay, great. So now it's going to be 5 minutes for Reg to ask Detroyer his questions. The time will start on your first word.
Right. We're just going to continue from where we left off. So you say that people disagree whether abortion is right or wrong. Yes. But they disagree by continuing to refer and link these principles where they expect to find moral agreement, right? And then apply them. Could you give me an example of a possible way that people can dispute, like those primitives, like with the abortion is murder case? Abortion is murder. The other person objects, murder isn't wrong. You guys both agree on every fact about the situation and interpret it the exact same way. But one of you says this is wrong. The other one of you says this is right. You believe moral disagreement is possible, and they're referring to some second thing here. Show me how that could be undertaken.
So what could be undertaken? That they could disagree?
That discourse that you claim happens, show me it.
What? It just happens all the time. I don't understand. You want me to point to?
Just paint the picture for me.
What do you want me to say? Like, here's a debate that happened between people who disagree on the methods of abortion.
Yep, you must believe that a dispute where people have all the facts or whatever, all of the they link all the facts, they know everything about the situation, that people can actually still have substantive disagreement because they're actually referring to some third thing. So it should be possible. Show me how it's possible. You just said it happens all the time. Show me how it happens.
I'm not sure what you're asking me to do. Like, explain
characterize an argument where that happens. Those arguments that you just said happen all the time.
I'm just going to point to any random debate on abortion or whatever. I don't understand what you're asking me to do.
Do it. Act it out for me. You can act, yeah.
You want me to say, "Oh, I think abortion is right," and then another person says,
and then the other person says, "I think it's wrong," and then they just scream at each other, yeah, over and over again.
Well, how they approach the debate, I mean, it's going to depend on the people.
I told you they've already agreed on all the facts and all the inferences. They perceive it all in the exact same way when it comes to. They agree that the fetus is life or that the fetus isn't life. They agree on all of the facts and all of the inferences. Yet they have the disagreement on the principle, right? This is totally possible in your worldview, and there should still be disputes about it.
Correct.
So tell me what a dispute would look like.
I'm not sure what more you're asking me to do. What may be interesting is to ask me the question of, well, what would decide who is correct? Like, maybe that's what you're asking me? Because I can answer that.
You claim that there's this moral disagreements that we have that I can't account for, right? And because I'm saying that when we have moral disagreements, we're looking for shared principles, and then we're just applying these shared principles, right? But if there's actually
that's part of a common. If that's not all there is, but yeah.
Don't interrupt me, bruh. I'm asking you questions. If there's some other third thing that we're actually referring to, when there's disagreements on principles, there should be some manner to progress, because we're actually referring to a third thing other than just intuitive principles, right? And yet, as soon as you get to that point, all discourse breaks down because there's actually no third thing.
No, so, okay, if you're... Great. So if you're asking me how else might people progress in resolving this dispute, sure, now we have a fairly clear enough question that I can answer.
I can't believe it's taken you 3 minutes to get, to wrap your head around it, but...
Well, it's taking you 3 minutes to express something that makes any sense. So the short answer is, well, the longer answer I gave in my first opening, but the shorter answer is just that, look, we'd have to do further investigation regarding what sort of things we're tracking when we employ these moral terms and concepts, right? And it could be that we're talking past each other. It could be that they're tracking things in such a way that it does count as moral or immoral, yet that was unknown at the initial stage of the analysis. This is a common way to proceed, or briefly speaking.
I don't know where I put it. Sorry, someone just came into my room.
So obviously I can elaborate on this, but it's just like a long.
Yeah, none of this. I'd hope so, because you said nothing. You just said that maybe they're talking past each other. You're telling me, how can these disputes, once you've identified the two principles that you disagree with, these are based moral principles, is there any way for the discourse to progress? If so, what does it look like?
I just gave it. What?
They find out if they're talking past each other. Of course they are.
No. I said that was one possibility, right?
What's the other one?
If in the case where they're not talking past each other, again, I'll just repeat what I just said, is that they can do a more empirical investigation into the semantics. What sort of things are they tracking? But with their,
I just told you they've already found agreement on every part of the situation. I mean, all the facts about the situation are agreed on. The moral principles are different.
Well, if they agree on the moral semantics, then and all the sort of facts about what that's tracking, then in what sense could the principles be different?
They both know everything about abortion. They know what life is. They know what murder is. They know that murder is unlawful killing. They know all of this. Yet one of them thinks unlawful killing is good. The other one thinks unlawful killing is wrong. When you try to interrogate it, they both conceptualize it in the same way. One has the intuition that it's wrong. One has the intuition that it is right. Do you think this is impossible?
It's time.
What I'm saying is not investigating those things. It's investigating the semantics of moral concepts.
Okay. Now would be 2 minutes of optional prep time. Do you guys want it, or do you want to move on?
I'm willing to. What's it called? I don't know what the word is, but seeds for prep time if he is.
Okay, you guys just want to move on?
Yeah.
Great. So now would be 4-minute rebuttal speeches, starting with Detroyer. We'll start the time on your first word.
All right, so let's see. In his opening statement, Reg pointed out that a lot of my case was relying on people's moral intuitions, or the fact that a lot of people are moral realists or agree to moral truths. That wasn't exactly correct. What I was leaning on, people's moral beliefs, was for the elitic condition, just for the fact that, well, there are certain truths, like such and such is right or such and such is wrong. What sort of truth that is, say it's a stance dependent, or what exactly it's expressing is a further question, but that's what I was leaning on for the truth of that. Regarding the stance independence condition and the further things I was saying about how moral semantics functions, there I was leaning on, well, as best I can tell, facts about how the moral semantics works. And I gave a rough, albeit brief, picture of the way the extensions of various moral terms gets filled out. And nothing about what I was saying was committing to some queer moral properties or involve some queer connection, or anything that would conflict with standard evolutionary picture of our development. All of that I take to be just perfectly compatible with the view that I expressed. So I just don't see that as a relevant critique of my view that I expressed. Yeah, and then the view that Regs appears to be defending as his anti-realist position is that people are just expressing, when someone says that X is right or X is wrong, they're expressing a preference regarding how people behave. They'd rather people behave in such a way that they don't do X or they do X or something else like that. Yeah, that just seems extremely implausible as a general view of the semantics. Yeah, there's going to be some element of, sometimes people will use moral language to express that sort of thought. But generally speaking, that's not what's going on. People claim that something is wrong. Someone else might say, no, that's right. And they're actually having a real disagreement. They're not just talking past each other in the sense that one is saying something about their own preferences and the other is saying something about theirs, and they're just, of course, both saying something correct. No, they're actually disagreeing. And the way that I'll try to clarify again, as it was brought up in the question to me about how they could make progress if they agree on all the facts, but disagree on all the non-moral facts, but agree on all the non-moral facts, but disagree on the moral facts. If they're agreeing on all the facts regarding the semantics and what the sort of moral terms are tracking and so on, well, then they just are going to agree on the moral status of the act in question, because either it's classified one way or the other, or it's just sort of an unclear case. And if they agree on all the facts about the semantics, they'll agree on the moral status of the act in question. As it turns out, oftentimes we don't have a fully clear understanding of the semantics, or we go beyond what the semantics actually licenses and sort of fill things in or expand it, or sometimes there's actually variable semantics, and so people talk past each other. It can get quite complicated. But all of this is perfectly compatible with the general view that I described in my opening. But that's the general way that you can have a genuine disagreement and it can proceed. And that's just what it seems to be that's happening. Although people don't often approach it in the most effective way, but people actually do have real disagreements, and they're not just saying something about their own attitudes about something. In fact, more to the point that I brought up already, people often express something as agree that something is a moral truth, but disagree that that's not how they would prefer the world to be. Maybe I agree that I don't know, pornography is permissible, but I prefer that nobody did it. That's a common thing that people express as well. This sort of thing is a frequent phenomenon until it contradicts the view that it's a matter of expressing preferences.
Great. Okay, Reg, you're going to have your 4-minute rebuttal. I'll start the time on your first word.
Okay, sure. So there's a few things. First, I'm going to start off with just a little continuation of my what's called the back and forth or whatever that cross-examination is. So you make this claim that if they agree on all the facts, then they'll agree on all the normal facts. Then there's just like some moral semantics dispute. But you're using this word moral semantics really, really generously, right? Either you're using it to just mean they agree on the moral category they put it in, as in right or wrong, or because that's the only type of disagreement that actually exists, right? It's just all the facts, and now you're putting in this category of right or wrong, and you need there's like a set of necessary and sufficient conditions in these people's minds as to what right and wrong is, and whether these conditions are met, right? But you're making this weird leap to somehow that this relates to some stance independent thing, because but once you engage in this dispute, right, to the two people who agree or disagree, once they know all the facts, there actually is no progress that they can make. And you keep like putting it in this conceptual framework because you can't do it, because obviously you can't do it. It's impossible. It's incoherent, but it's impossible to actually play it out, right? You couldn't quickly act me a scene of two people who agree on all the moral facts. I mean, all the non-moral facts, having any moral disagreement that refers to anything other than this is right, this is right, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, over and over and over again. It's impossible. Also, you're doing this really, really ontologically light system to respond to this, where you say that, oh, I don't know how my position forces me to believe in anything non-evolutionarily or whatever, right? But then it's confusing what kind of thing, like what type of thing this mind-independent moral fact is. Is this mind independent moral fact just an utterance that's somehow mind independent? Is it like an actual property of the world? Because if so, then you do have to make this ontological commitment. It is bizarre why an evolutionary species has actually got magical access to this mind independent thing. So the two burdens for you here to make me subscribe to this thing is, one, you need to characterize how people can turn the yes-no dispute over and over again into something substantive. Because if they are referring to something mind-independent, then they should be able to refer to that mind-independent thing during the dispute, right? Once it gets to that thing where you're both dealing with a moral primitive, right? Like just an irreducible moral fact where you agree on all of the non-moral things, there should be some way to progress that dispute if there is a third thing, because they would be referring to it. If they believed in a third thing, it would be there. And then I need to be given reason to believe that this third, like that one, that people were referring to this third thing, and two, that this third thing is real, right? Because I'm not going to object that nobody in the entire world is a moral realist, and nobody in the entire world uses moral realist language, but I could accept this, and moral realism still not be true. So these are two big burdens, because yeah, you're saying that we use language in that way, but I don't see why you'd think that. And even if we did use language in that way, I don't know why you'd be right. Let me just quickly double check if there's anything else I have to say before I yield. Nah, seems fine with me.
Great. Thanks, Reg. You guys are going to have your last section of cross. You get 3 minutes each. We're going to start with Detroyer asking Reg his questions. Your 3-minute timer will start on your first word.
Yeah, okay, so I'll start with the thing that I actually ended off on. What do you think about the example where, and then I think this would be a common occurrence, where someone says, yeah, maybe something like pornography is permissible, but I prefer that nobody do it, or something like that. Is that coherent?
Again, I think people, when we talk about moral preferences, they're not completely reducible to just like what exactly you want. I think people separate. People have like a conception of moral intuitions that aren't exactly the same as like my preference for burgers, for example. And I think that's
Well,
fine.
so what
They
makes that
believe
a
in, like,
non-moral preference then? What's the
Pardon?
difference?
Wait, what? Say that again.
Are you saying that's not a moral preference then? When someone says I prefer that nobody...
It might not be. It might not be. I'd need more information.
Well, but for the example at hand, where someone says, okay, maybe...
well, because why do they prefer it?
Well, maybe they just very dislike it. They disprefer it in the case at hand.
Yeah, but it's like, is it like in the way they don't prefer burgers?
Well, perhaps in the way they don't prefer people doing all sorts of things they don't like. I don't understand.
Yeah, okay, because there's a preference type in which you're just saying I like desire this. This is something that I want, and then when people are making these prescriptive, like people are expressing their like moral intuitions prescriptively, they're not just referring to like things that benefit them directly or don't benefit them and achieve their like physical goals, or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I'll move on to another question because I don't want to spend all the time on this. But just to summarize my concern here is that you said that when people say this X is right or X is wrong, all they're doing is expressing some, preference about how people act. But oftentimes people will say X is right or X is wrong when they don't have the corresponding preference. And that I just gave an example. It seems to be a counterexample to your thesis. So regarding my view, you do understand that I'm expressing, I thought you were saying this, understanding this. It's an ontologically thin view. There's not a kind of additional entity or something like that people are denoting when they employ moral language. But the fact that it's test independent is just a thesis about the truth conditions of the statement in question. It's not, say, some stances or attitudes of people that make it true or false, that such and such is right or wrong. That's all I'm saying. Does that make sense to you?
Okay, right. So they're stance independent. They're stance independently true, but there's no truth maker.
But there is the truth maker.
What's the truth maker?
The truth maker in this case is going to be facts regarding the moral semantics.
So something is objective. Okay, yeah. You're going to need to get. What do you mean when you say moral semantics here? Because you're doing a lot of legwork with this. Oh, I'm not asking questions.
Well, okay. I'll comment that. Actually, I'll save that for my next response.
That's time anyway. There's like 2 seconds left.
Oh, okay, whatever. I guess
if you want, Reg, if you want, Reg, during your cross, you can just re-ask the question.
Yeah, go. Question's just been asked. Go. My cross starts.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
When you say the having to dispute with the moral semantics, what kind of legwork is moral semantics doing here?
So the moral semantics is what fixes the extensions of the relevant categories. What sort of actions and traits and events are included under the extension of, say, good or obligatory or permissible or impermissible and so on.
So you're just saying that moral reasoning is just like people building moral systems and then seeing if building moral systems, and if the two people or whatever, something could be right or wrong if it is true or false. Things are right or wrong if they meet the necessary and sufficient conditions under that moral system.
I wouldn't phrase it in terms of necessary and sufficient conditions because it's more complicated than that. I'm talking about what sort of things these track, and it's typically not given in terms of necessary and sufficient conditions. But
well, it's like,
yeah, so
it's like, let's say with two utilitarians. Is the claim here? Is your position just you got two utilitarians? Yeah,
Uh-huh.
they find out that the action produces more harm than good. Therefore, this thing is therefore it is true that it's wrong. In the way they're expressing it, it's true that it's wrong. That's the claim.
I'm not talking about utilitarians. I mean, I think the utilitarians are making an error about if they're trying to capture the commitments of normal, moral terms. So I'm not making a claim about utilitarians, but maybe rephrase it.
Okay, then it's still unclear. So we're building. These things are these things true and false within normative systems like utilitarianism, or are they true? Is there one truth for? Yeah, is murder wrong? Is there only one correct answer?
So if we're on our sort of shared semantics, it's wrong, right? But of course, there's variable semantics. People could be employing the terms in another way.
How are you using it?
What do you mean? How am I using it?
When you just said it, what were you expressing?
I'm just going to say. I'm going to start repeating the stuff I said already. I can sort of expand on it.
Just go ahead. When you just said it, what are you expressing?
So when I say that murder is wrong or something is wrong, roughly, some sort of action or action type is wrong, I'm saying, look, there's this category of action, wrong action, and there's certain sorts of actions that, given the moral semantics that I'm using,
what qualified its membership into the group?
So that's the way the semantics was developed, and we inherited that.
So are you referring to something someone else said, or are you referring to what you believe?
Both.
Okay, okay. Where did the mind independence come in?
Because the fact that it's part of that category is not a matter of opinion or stance. The only thing that's a matter of opinion or stance?
What grants it membership in that category?
It's time.
I already answered that.
Okay. So do you guys want the 2 minutes of prep time, or do you guys want to move on?
I'm fine.
I'm fine.
Okay. Great. So you guys are going to have your 4-minute closings. Just make it very easy for the judges. Tell them exactly why you specifically have won the debate. We're going to start with Detroyer. I'll start your timer with your first word.
Oh, I go last.
Well, I know, but that's how we've been doing it for like the entire tournament. If you guys want to switch it, I'll do it. If you guys are both okay with it.
What's the request?
I thought opening goes last, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's just that's how we started this tournament, and so I just wanted it to be consistent. But if you guys both agree, then you guys can do that. That's fine.
It doesn't really matter.
I vote against that.
You vote against what?
me going right now. You can go last. Yeah, I can go.
I'll go.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll go. It doesn't matter to me.
That's okay. Okay,
give me 1 second then. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, in sum, I presented, I think, although it hasn't been tracked very well, I think reasonable and fairly well supported view about the moral semantics, which is a ultimately realist position, and for which there are stance-independent moral truths, and so realism is roughly true. Some of the issues raised from my view that involves some magical faculty, it requires some like queer properties or queer connection to them is wrong. That's just, if you understood my view, that's not what's involved at all. You just employ this sort of discourse that develops entirely organically that doesn't require anything like that. It's a non-structurally thin view. I'm not requiring the existence of any strange moral properties or anything like that. He asked me to explain how people would have substantive moral disagreements, even if there's no substantive descriptive disagreements. Well, depends on what we're including here. If they're agreeing on all the facts about what their relevant moral terms are tracking, right? They agree on the moral semantics, then they will just agree on the moral status of some action in question, because that's what would decide the moral status of that fact, the moral semantics. And to the extent to which people persist in disagreement is while people are either just engineering a new development to the concept or engaging in a sort of verbal dispute. Or they're using the language to express something else. And that's all perfectly compatible with my view. I didn't hear a good response to the concern that I raised regarding the possibility that, and in fact, frequent occurrence that someone expresses that something has a particular moral status, but they have a preference regarding its realization that does not align with that. I might agree that pornography is permissible or even good, but prefer, maybe even strongly, that nobody do it. And this can be commonly realized for all sorts of things that people often associate with a moral question. So it just can't be that I'm just expressing a moral preference when I express that something has some particular moral valence. Beyond that, I think. So what's the sort of main reason for thinking that I won this debate? One is that I gave a consistent view that accords with the empirics of the fact that people engage in sort of discourse in a way that is clearly a substantive, cognitive, and often truthful manner that they can make progress on, and actually have preferences which disagree with the results of this discourse. Really, no concern was raised for that stuck. No positive reason for thinking that an anti-Lewis view is correct was really given, except, again, all he managed to do was just say, well, I think that the moral semantics is that people are expressing their preferences, and that's it. I raised like one challenge and I didn't get a good response to it, or any good really support for thinking that reason is correct. Yeah. Let me just, was there anything else I wanted to cover? It just really seemed like that the concerns or questions regarding the details of my approach here just reflected a poor understanding of what I was saying. Maybe that could be hashed out in a further conversation or a further explanation, but that's all we have to go on for this. I'll leave it there.
Great. Thanks, Detroyer. Reg, you're going to have your 4-minute closing statement. Tell the judges exactly why you've won. I'll start the timer on your first word.
Okay, so we've already we spent a lot of my time talking about the thing that he just said proclaims his victory, right? He says his victory is proclaimed because because all of this, we're capable of moral disagreement, this is how people engage, and we're capable of moral disagreement. One, the way people engage, people use. I showed this with my studies. I showed this with my sources, and also I showed this with a bunch of examples that were never responded to, such as the fact that people do not defer to experts in moral reasoning ever. Right? That's never happened. Nobody does that. Right? That case was completely unresponded to. So the first reason he gave for why he won doesn't stick at all. And when I asked him a 1,000 bazillion times whether murder is wrong, whether there's one answer to whether murder is wrong, and when two people disagree on whether murder is wrong, what that kind of dispute looks like, he just told me, trust me, bro. Trust me, it's possible, right? Maybe it is possible. Maybe his view is coherent. I've seen no evidence of it. I've asked it in every single way I could possibly ask it. I probably used 5 minutes out of my time asking him to give me a characterization of this. He says, disagree. If the moral semantics are resolved, then you'll get the same answer. You both have the same answer. But no, nobody has seen, despite rigorous questioning, a characterization of what moral semantics means. So this is all just nothing. His case is that these things are true, right? They are mind independently true, stance independently true if they're based on the moral semantics. Yet there's been no characterization of moral semantics other than a motivist, right, or like the kind of thing that I'm describing, in which we say that murder is wrong, and then you agree or you disagree, right? Once you've agreed on all the facts, you agree or you disagree. He's claiming his whole thing is built on this claim that there is some other type of dispute, right? That disputes have some other form, and I've not seen them. Then he criticizes my account and says that my account relies, because there's only really been one counterexample, and this counterexample is this preferences thing, right? He says, oh, people think porn is good, but they have a preference against it. And this is just a moral preference versus like burger preference, which I did respond to. I did talk about this. When people say that they prefer burgers over avocados, they're just expressing like a baseline desire. But I think people conceptualize their moral intuitions and their moral preferences differently. I don't think this is controversial. I don't think that this is, super dubious to say. I don't think people actually disagree with this, right? People have moral preferences, even if they were to cease to exist. People are willing to die for moral goals, right? They're not the exact same as just standard desires. This doesn't mean that there's any stance independent facts or anything, right? But this is nothing. Okay, like this whole thing is nothing. So I'm supposed to believe that because his case that there are these stance independent moral facts is that, or that something stance independent is going on, is that it can resolve a bunch of it can account for a bunch of things, even in some mysterious way that he's refused to cash out, even though I've given him extensive time to do so. However, in my case, when I have hit that wall, the murder is wrong wall, it's explained entirely, right? And that murder is wrong wall is the crux of this debate. It's what we spent the whole time on, and you know why we can't progress when we hit murder is wrong. You've had this dispute. Everybody knows that when you get into a more primitive dispute, you just can't progress, right? And he's claiming that progression can happen, and I don't know how, I don't know when. And when I ask him to give me an account, he just says moral semantics over and over again. What the fuck does that mean? And I'm not confused about your view. Well, actually, everyone should be. Everybody watching the debate should be, because you've just refused to substantiate it.
It's time.
That's it.
Okay.
Then. Thanks for listening.
Thank you guys so much. That was a great debate. I hope you guys had fun for the final round. If the judges could please, if you look right under the stage VC, there's a judge VC. If you could please go there so you guys can discuss and figure out who you're voting for, that would be great. Mason and Eric. There you go. Just Eric now.
Also, whoever said I sent Moxie, I also sent a link to it as well. Not just the picture. Oh. Ooh. It's a shame I can't speak to the audience, but I don't want to go to a big VC because then I'm going to get swarmed by 48 monkeys.
Oh, by the way, for the person who asked me what this is my actual view, sort of, not exactly. I think this is like partly correct, but I think it's more like complicated and messy than I let on. And I think it's like I'm sort of downplayed some of the other functions of the moral discourse because it's a big mess. But I think partly this is correct. Yeah. So because this is the sort of closest realist view that I thought was kind of correct, that's what I went for. But really, I wouldn't classify myself as a realist or an anti-realist because I think it's even too much.
See what my fans think. Have I received any DMs?
See, yeah. So the view is just roughly that the way that the various normative categories get filled out is, this complicated process of the development of semantics. What sort of things we're tracking when we say that something is good or bad, and there's sort of prototypical examples. There's sort of features associated with the different normative categories, and so that's how it gets filled in. I gave a few examples, like raping babies. Okay, that's the sort of thing that we just that's associated with the category.
Also, I was thinking about this during the debate, but I decided not to do a premise thing. But the claim that you're making, like, does moral realism mean moral facts exist? Okay, because I was kind of shocked just to the more ontologically thin position, whether that's even legal. But I didn't.
It is. Care. So it is. So I was wondering if this would come up. It's a sort of unusual realist position, but I think it is a realist position all the same, because all that matters is that, I think it satisfies the conditions that I raised. The thing that sometimes people have brought up in response was that, wait a minute, but like, look at all the work that's being done by the quote unquote moral semantics, right? That seems to be fixing the status of the moral status of different actions and so on, and that's clearly a mind dependent thing. The semantics, of course, the response to that is that it's the semantics is a mind dependent thing, but the question is whether, given those semantics, the moral status of something is a further mind dependent question. I mean, in the same way that, I say the moon is roughly spherical. Well, the semantics of that statement is a mind-dependent question, but whether the claim is true, given those semantics, is not a further mind-dependent question. So that was the idea there. But yeah, the view that I'm not actually requiring any sort of extra moral entity.
Yeah, I wish I clarified that I didn't still believe the ontologically dense thing at the end, but I stopped talking about it, so hopefully that dropped it, because I did drop it because it wasn't a response, right? And I should have, just acknowledged that I moved on from it, maybe, because then it's just like, oh, well, yeah, that's fine.
It is tough though, because I'm like, the view that I'm describing, it's unusual and also hard to communicate effectively in a short manner. So I'm not sure. I don't know.
Yeah, I also just hate getting cut off. Like, why do we need to have such a short amount of time? Can't we use?
I know.
I don't know why we. I think that next debate.
I think the cross should be longer.
We should, or at least just allow us to negotiate on our rulings, how long we should have and shit. Because
because if you ask me some question and it's going to take me a couple minutes to explain it, then okay, we're done with cross. Yeah, 10-minute cross. I mean, for something like this, I don't know. I don't care. It was probably fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally forgot. I'd noted down the experts thing, but I'd never actually brought it up. I didn't. Obviously, I was going to say it was false. Some people sometimes do defer to experts, but also it doesn't matter. I mean, we don't think if given the view that I have about the way the discourse works, it's I don't think the experts, quote unquote, have any. Well, there's two things to raise. One is that there's reasons to think that experts are not very reliable in this matter, because they just end up developing these different theories, and I think resting on metaethical assumptions that are wrong. But the other thing is that, if we're all sort of competent speakers of the language, we use the terms in roughly the same way. Whether we're philosophers or other people, we have general the same sort of general ability to reflect on those terms and how they get employed. Now that is not, of course, you could someone could be an expert in that they're they better understand the empirical facts regarding what sort of things these are tracking, and it actually would be what's the word I'm looking for? It would be prudent to look to those people to gain insight on that, because given the sort of view that I was expressing, that would actually be a way forward to resolving some dispute if it could be resolved. But most people don't, I think, realize how the discourse functions.
Yeah, this is fine. I just think that I probably understood your position during the dispute, but it's fine. Rhetoric carry, so we'll see.
Yeah, I wonder if I could have explained it better. I don't know. I would have needed more time, maybe.
Because I kind of now I'm just gonna check. So when you're saying that we know that the claim murder is wrong and that's true, whatever. It's just saying that we as a society that uses the word wrong attribute that we put.
Yeah, roughly we're saying that that's an action or sort of action that's been included in this.
Been designated
in the way of semantics. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I understand the response that this feels like a cheap sort of realism, but or
it's fine. No, I have no problem with. I have no problem.
Yeah.
I remember one time I was telling Pluto on stage about abortion or something, and I said, "Oh, Judaism is true. That's why abortion is wrong," and he didn't expect that. It's the games they get.
Yeah. No, I heard someone give that sort of argument for. There was somebody on. What was it? It was on the Capturing Christianity channel, and it was Jimmy Akin and somebody else were giving. He was giving an argument for